Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's regrettable that we have to be here today because I do know that there's many different events that different members can be at, but events aside, this is an issue of national prominence, and I hope that today's committee's proceedings give it its due. It is incredibly important for us as parliamentarians to have factual information. Obviously, if a minister makes a misrepresentation in the House of Commons, there are rules that allow for us to immediately challenge those things, and for the Speaker to ask for that minister or that even a Prime Minister to come into order. Because this House of Commons, it's important for us to have accurate information so we can make good decisions on behalf of our constituents. And when it comes to the Gordie Howe Bridge, I welcome the new bridge. I think that this is something that the previous Harper government worked very hard to secure a strong deal that worked both for Canadians as well as for the other side. And it was decided because of the politics at the time to have it where Canadians would fund the bridge. But this was no small undertaking. And since then, Canadian workers have worked very hard to fulfill that end of the promise and to build a great bridge that we can use to the benefit of our economy. But it troubles me, Mr. Chair, that the Prime Minister, in his statement to the press at Stampede, regardless of what he was wearing, a cowboy hat or otherwise, he made specific, he said what was in the deal. And he made specific gave details from what was in that particular agreement that he had come to with the Trump administration. And then at a second press conference of his on July 17th, he reiterated those same points. And what we found out from the media was that that was not the case at all. Now, some Liberal members actually took umbrage with the fact that Conservatives were pointing to these media reports and actually said that we were spreading misinformation. That turned out, Mr. Chair, to be untrue. It turns out that the Prime Minister made statements that directly contradict what was in the agreement, and he made so multiple times. Now, unfortunately, the rules of the House do not apply at Stampede, nor do they apply at a Prime Minister's press conference. But this is a democracy, and our rules do apply here in this chamber. So it's important for the opposition and for Liberal members themselves to hold the government to account to make sure that Canadians are being given factual information so that we can make good decisions. Now, the fact that these statements were contradictory, the fact that Minister Robertson has told the minister responsible for infrastructure has told media that he will not be releasing fiscal impacts from this side deal arrangement with the Trump administration on revenue, raises a whole host of questions. First of all, I believe that at very first we need to make sure we have proper transparency. Holding a hearing is a first step towards that. Having the parliamentary budget officer being able to model what the financial impacts to the side agreement will have ultimately on the Canadian taxpayer that has funded. And again, I have to give the Canadian taxpayer full credit. We have all collectively felt this was an asset that we needed to have. And to see this capitulation by the Prime Minister to the American side, and then to try to give a false view of it, whether it was from a lack of personal knowledge. I don't think that someone of his position and background that we can say that, or worse than that, Mr. Chair, if this was in fact a plan by the Prime Minister to convey incorrect information on purpose. To me, that's unfathomable as well. I believe that the highest office in our country deserves to have the highest standards, and I think that we as parliamentarians should demand better of our officials. So again, Mr. Chair, Canadian taxpayers have paid lots of money for this. We all know that there are challenges dealing with the American administration, but Canadians, the taxpayers, are due an explanation as to why this agreement was ratified, why the Prime Minister gave contradicting statements, why when we only found out through the media, and lastly, we need to have more transparency, including financial modeling. And as we've heard from professional economists from across the sphere, there's a National Post story this week that says that the fiscal framework, with so many announcements and so many impacts to the fiscal framework with zero transparency, where even the parliamentary budget officer is having difficulty reconciling what the government makes in announcements and what actually happens. Mr. Chair, it's incredibly disheartening for me as a parliamentarian, because I care about this place. I believe that we can make good decisions if we have the right information. I would hope that all members would be supportive of the following motion. Given that the Prime Minister capitulated to American demands regarding Gordie Howe International Bridge toll revenues and subsequently provided inaccurate information to Canadians about the deal, and given that many serious questions remain about the impact of the deal on Canadian taxpayers and businesses, the committee, A, order the Department of Housing, Communities and Infrastructure to produce all drafts of proposed agreement in principle for the new deal related to the Gordie Howe International Bridge within 2 weeks of adoption of this motion. B, send a request to the Parliamentary Budget Officer to conduct a net present value analysis of the Gordie Howe Bridge. C, conduct a study of no less than 5 meetings into this matter, provided that the committee invite the following witnesses to testify separately for 2 hours each. A, Dominic LeBlanc, Minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade. B, Gregor Robertson, Minister of Infrastructure. C, Francois-Philippe Champagne, Minister of Finance. And D, officials from the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority. And in the interim, report to the House that it calls upon the Prime Minister to incorporate transparency, accuracy, openness, and honesty in all public communications regarding the Canada-U.S. relationship to ensure Canadians have the reliable information they need to navigate the real-world impacts of this strained relationship. So, Mr. Chair, I do hope that this committee will treat this issue with as much seriousness as it deserves and not simply be dismissed. These are basic questions of transparency, something that Canadians should always expect of their government and of their parliamentarians. Thank you.